Okay, welcome into KC Sports Tonight, Wednesday, February 25th, which is the last Wednesday of March. Hard to believe. We are going to dive headfirst into the Big 12 Women's Tournament is in town next week. Gabe, I know you and I will be there. Men's Tournament the following week. Then we got Selection Sunday, NCAA Tournament, Royals opening day, March 30th.
Yep.
So this is our last kind of collective breath before we dive full speed ahead into March. But Gabe, we're going to talk about Kansas second. I know you were at the Houston game. What was that, Monday night?
Yep.
Monday night, obviously.
Monday night.
Going to dive into them in a second because they have a huge game this weekend with potential not only Big 12 tournament, but NCAA tournament implications when it comes to seeding. First, though, I'm curious your take on the Mizzou game last night. Big upset. A significant upset over Tennessee in the sense that Mizzou is on CBS Sports bubble. They're on most national bubbles as the last four in. Last week, I think they were kind of in the more like first four out range, but certainly another quad one win over Tennessee is huge. So, Gabe, I'll kick you off with this. Do the Mizzou men make the NCAA tournament?
I think they do. I actually think that the odds of them going to Dayton went down on last night.
As a first four?
As a first four team, because I think that not only did they win, Auburn lost. Auburn has been ahead of them. I disagree with that. I think Auburn has lost a ton, and Auburn's getting credit for losing to good teams more than beating anybody.
Sure.
And I also think that, Indiana's loss to Northwestern is another thing that on the bubble helps Mizzou move up. Not only are you getting the positive of winning, but teams that you needed to lose or teams that it would be helpful if they lost are losing. So I think that that's really good for them. And I think that we're at the point where you can say it's a big win when they win at home, but they're beating a lot of teams and they're winning games at home that I don't know if it necessarily should be super surprising because they've shown, at least under Dennis Gates, that they win when they play at home way more frequently than anything else. And so I would say that the result that shocked me more was them losing by double digits against Texas at home a couple weeks ago because that was out of the norm for them. And I thought they played okay against Arkansas on the road over the weekend. So I think they're a tournament team. I think that I don't know if they're a team that – I think that they honestly – if they do end up in Dayton, I think that they are a team that can win that Tuesday or Wednesday night game. And then more often than not, those teams that go to Dayton get put in a precarious spot. They usually get flown out west or something weird happens with them. And the body clock situation, the turnaround and all that, they lose in the round of 64. And that's kind of where I'm at as far as where I think Mizzou is at. Ultimately, they are going to be penalized because their non-conference schedule was really, really poor. Mm-hmm. So even if they get in, their seed might be worse than it should be just because they played so many teams that are in the 300s in Ken Palm.
Prairie View, A&M, South Dakota, Cleveland State.
Not doing much for you.
Yeah. Certainly not resume boosters. Yeah, okay, so they have Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and Arkansas again. Arkansas at home. The other two games are on the road. I think if you win two of those three, so say you get Arkansas, which is a top 25 team, and then a road win, or you take two road wins against beatable opponents and then lose to a ranked team at home, and then you get a win in the SEC tournament. I think
just don't fall on your face.
Yeah. Should be fun, though, I know they always hold a big selection show watch party at Mizzou Arena. We've been the last however many years. This is the first one, though, where there's kind of like a bated breath of not like, where are we going, but are we going? Obviously, we should have a more solid picture 2 weeks from now. But, hanging on by the skin of their teeth against Vanderbilt was huge. And then last night, again, insane game by Barrett and Mark Mitchell, who's a KCK guy. I think they put up 28 and 23 respectively and made big plays down the stretch. And I think that one has you feeling a lot more comfortable heading into the last week and a half of the season here.
I would say that ultimately it's just going to be win the games that you're supposed to, avoid falling on your face on Wednesday. Or the SEC tournament ends on Sunday, so the Wednesday is their Tuesday or Thursday is their Wednesday for the equivalent of the Big 12 tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Don't lose in the first game that you play to
you go 0-4
because the
here,
SEC is
man.
not
We're having a different conversation.
Yeah, and there's some bad teams at the bottom of the SEC that losing to would be a tough look.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of our college hoops conversation, Kansas at Arizona this weekend, and we'll slip in K-State playing tonight. They're headed to Boulder for the first time since 2011, which is kind of a wild. I don't think I put that into perspective. I know. I didn't put that into perspective.
I didn't think about that
until I read an email from K-State today. But we'll focus more on – well, let's start with K-State just because I do want to talk about this game. It is tonight if you're listening to this live. Gabe, does Kansas State have anything else to play for this season? I have opinions, but I want to hear yours first.
No, not really. I don't think so.
Sure.
I think that if you're a K-State fan, they don't have anything to play for. If you're a K-State player, you have NIL to play for next year.
Yes.
If you have eligibility.
Yeah.
And if not, you're playing for the memories because I am trying to think of who all would be exhausting their eligibility. Like Kamari McGriff, I think, is out of eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably a guy who plays in Europe if he wants to play in Europe. So the answer is no for the sake of anyone listening to this show. It's a yes if you are trying to maximize your NIL earnings.
Sure. Yeah.
And you're on the roster and you either don't believe that you'll be a priority for the new coaching staff or you don't have any desire to stay in Manhattan after this season and be a part of whatever the new tenure is, whichever lane of that is. I know PJ Haggerty still has another year of eligibility, so he got paid handsomely by K-State, and his fit was not quite as good as it was at Memphis, so I'm sure that he is looking for something to do next season and a better fit and a better spot. But he took a long time in the transfer portal to make his decision to wind up at K-State this year. I wonder if he prioritizes fit and finding a good spot more than he prioritizes money next year.
A place where you can win and be in the national conversation. Think about BYU and Kansas. Like, you need a platform to lift you up to be in those conversations. Well, obviously we are going to say the same thing, but if you're a K-State player, yes, this is a very individual era of college basketball where think of it like Chiefs after they were eliminated from the playoffs, although K-State does still have a chance to make a run. I will say technically, while the Chiefs were done. However, you're building tape to get a job next year, essentially. I having not been in any of those K-State locker rooms, but having been in losing locker rooms before, I've said this, you only need to win 5 games in a row in March to, in K-State's case, have an ESPN 30 for 30 made out of them for the most unbelievable turnaround in college basketball history, maybe, to still make the tournament at this point, but hey.
Even last year's K-State team,
yeah.
I was in the locker room after they won their first game in the Big 12 tournament, and then when they lost the ensuing one and the season was over for them because they knew that they had no at-large hopes. It was a very disappointing year, and they were in the bottom half of the Big 12. Even that one, it was a very emotional scene. And
yeah, that was when Keontae Johnson went. Wasn't that last year?
No, last year it was Coleman
Hawkins.
Johnson.
Coleman Hawkins
was talking
that
about
feels like a lifetime ago.
The online stuff and all that kind of things. I think that this year's team, more of the frustration from the fans certainly got aimed at Jerome Tang than the players. At least once the fan base completely realized that was more of the issue than maybe the talent. And the talent that was brought in was certainly an issue. But I think the fan base realized that it was kind of the guy at the top making a large portion of their problems. So I will be interested, at least in 2 weeks in Kansas City, to see how things play out. I was really looking forward to a Jerome Tang press conference in Kansas City because he multiple times throughout the season said now is not the time for the answer or whatever to how the team was fixing problems. But we will never get that. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but I'm not going to let it ruin Big 12 tournament week in Kansas City.
Hard too, because you have, 6 top 25 teams, 7, multiple of them in the top 10, including big matchup we have this weekend, technically 2 versus 14. If you're a KU fan and you were watching college hoops last night, Baylor did not do you any favors. Looked like for a second there they might take out Arizona and get you a little bit closer to having a shot at the regular season title, but alas, Arizona pulls through. So KU, Houston, and Iowa State now all sitting, and Texas Tech now all sitting 2 games back with 3 to go. KU does have the advantage of they play at Arizona on Saturday, so hypothetically you could take out Arizona. You're 1 game back, kind of hope for the chips to fall in your favor over the last pair of games there. But Gabe, I think the really interesting part for me, and I will say this, Arizona has KU on Saturday, so let's say the Jayhawks take them out. Then Arizona has Iowa State next, so that's a little bit more realistic of a loss compared to Kansas's last 2 games.
Yeah.
But, really, all that matters if you're Kansas right now, we've talked about it, is to get that double bye. Right now, 2 through 5 all have the same record at 11-4. Iowa State, Houston, Kansas, and Texas Tech. One of those teams is going to get a single bye and not a double bye, which in March is invaluable, especially for a Kansas team that has a certain star who would probably benefit from as much rest as he could get this time of year. Gabe, just thoughts on this weekend's game and kind of what you're watching as we are finally in the home stretch.
I would say even more so than the Darren Peterson angle of things, because I think that the last 2 games he's played more, and it seems like you can tell at times where he looks like he's maybe conserving energy, or he's
springy.
figuring out. I thought he was active defensively on Monday night, but the whole roster of KU needs to get the double bye because they only play 7 guys, 6 and like Jamari McDowell and Elmarco Jackson play off the bench. Cole Rosario played 1 possession of defense on Monday night when they had 2 fouls on Melvin Council, 2 fouls on Darren Peterson in the first half, and there was 30 seconds left, and Bill Self didn't want one of them to pick up a foul, so Darren was out of the game. They put Cole Rosario in, they get a stop, they put Darren back in, and they got a bucket. So that's not a team that you want playing on Wednesday if your goal is to win the tournament. I think Bill Self would even admit that winning the tournament is not the greatest goal. It would be awesome if it happens. No one's going to be bummed if it happens, but the league is so good. If you can just win on Thursday and win on Friday, you're picking up so many quality wins there that the resume gets so much better. And in the whole thing of the double bye, I think that KU may end up losing this Saturday, and it's a tall task to win in Tucson. But if you look at the standings at the moment, KU's in second, and it's because they have the tiebreaker over Texas Tech head-to-head. They have the tiebreaker over Houston head-to-head. So even if they lose to Arizona, if they just take care of business Tuesday night in Tempe, which I would be shocked if they don't as an ASU alum.
And then you have K-State
and then
at
K-State
home.
at home. So if they just go 2-1, Texas Tech and Iowa State have to play each other. So one of them is taking another loss. And if that's the case, if one of them takes another loss, KU has the head-to-head over Texas Tech. And I believe they have the strength of record tiebreaker over Iowa State because Iowa State or because KU beat Arizona and KU has beaten the top of the league. Like TCU moving up in the standings helps KU for that because KU beat TCU. Iowa State lost to TCU. So all of those things, if they just go 2-1, they should get the double bye. And if they get the double bye, you're in a spot where you're doing what everyone hoped for, especially after the last 2 years where they've not gotten that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been less than ideal for them. But I think that this is a team that its ceiling is every bit as high as any team in the Big 12 that's not Arizona.
Yeah.
And that showed Monday night. Like, Houston is, to me, way too perimeter oriented. And we saw that when they had 5 or 6 straight possessions in the second half on Monday night where it was just like run a ball screen, KU doubles them. They try to get a switch. They get a switch onto Flory, and that just is a disaster scenario because he has the length to guard any guard because he can move his feet well. And they settled for like 5 or 6 straight perimeter jump shots, and they never throw the ball in the post. Tugler doesn't do that. Sanak doesn't really post up. Iowa State is really, really poor at shooting free throws, and that, I think, is going to bite them in the NCAA tournament when they play in close games.
Mm-hmm.
And then Texas Tech doesn't have JT Toppin. So I think that Arizona is the best team in the league. They showed that last night by avoiding the loss to Baylor and pretty much locking up the league, barring a collapse of losing to KU and losing to Iowa State at home.
Yeah.
But I think KU is the second best team in the league, and that's the way that the standings look like today.
Yeah. On your Houston point, Badunga finishing with 4 points in 36 minutes because their entire goal was like, okay, well, we're not going to get beat inside. Cue Trey White putting up 23 points. Always comes back to bite you. So, okay, Big 12 tournament. Women start this next week. KU and K-State looking like a day 1, maybe a day 2 start. But I think I've said this. I think you have a sleeper in KU with Julia Davis and Smaya Nichols, both local talent. Julia Davis, now 8 straight Big 12 Freshman of the Week titles, which is the Power Conference record. She already set tied, and broke the Big 12 record, and then she's tied the Power Conference record for 8 straight Freshman of the Week honors, which is crazy. And then Smaya Nichols is also an All-American candidate. So they have
bubble implications.
Yeah, they have underperformed record-wise with the talent that they have on that roster. However, you make it deep in the Big 12 tournament, and we're having a different conversation in a couple weeks here. So, and then K-State, that's the 3rd youngest roster they've had in program history. So, again, would it be nice for them to, pull together a couple wins this week, next week? Yes. If they don't, and you're K-State, I think your hope is that you can bring a lot of those players back next season and start to kind of really build and easier said than done. And had this been pre-NIL, this K-State group would be really dangerous in a couple of years because you have, I think, 7 freshmen or something. Yeah. If they can keep them all together, I think that's still the case. But
it still happens more. It happens more in the women's game than it does in the men's game of teams sticking together. But yeah, the Big 12 women's tournament to me comes down to, specifically with us being the local angle of KU, there is so many bubble teams there at like, I think the last time I looked at the women's bracketology, you had KU, Arizona State, and Utah all in the last 4 in, first 4 out. So there's just those early games, not even focusing on what happens on the weekend, those early games are going to determine some NCAA tournament spots and maybe determine Brandon Schneider's job status because of like the way that KU has gone versus expectations.
You cannot be a bubble team and lose day 1 of your conference tournament and have any hope. Well, I guess technically, but that to me is your like play.
You're really risking it.
To the last 4. So, should be a fun tournament in Kansas City next week. Okay, let's move on to the NFL Combine, which is today. Kind of workouts that we'll see start tomorrow. Go through the weekend, but Gabe, maybe a player or two you're excited to watch. Cassius Howell, of course, out of Texas A&M, defensive end from Rockhurst High School.
Yeah.
Projected first rounder. I think I saw him going at 27 in the CBS mock draft I looked at. He's been as high as 15. We'll see, but player or two, Gabe, you're excited to watch this weekend.
I can't say that I'm going to watch the workouts.
The NFL is good at making very boring activities
Yeah.
feel like a rock concert, hence the NFL draft, in
Yeah.
my opinion, day 3. However,
It
you'll get a surprise every
it
once in a
will
while.
be social media consumption from
Highlights.
me.
Yeah.
Is I will see the things that get put out there, and like what's happening this earlier in the week of the quotes and such. I think will be more to follow. We've heard from certain people about Reuben Bain said that he interviewed with the Chiefs. He thought it went well. David Bailey interviewed with the Chiefs. That tells me, yeah, they're looking at edge rusher as an option. Um, One of the guys who could have been on the or could be on the Chiefs' radar if they're going to wide receiver is Jordan Tyson. He was an ASU guy, so I'm very familiar with him. He's not working out because he had a hamstring strain at the end of the season that I guess he's still recovering from. So I don't know. What I will say is that I think that it is such a critical offseason that we will be able to look back on Brett Veach's comments from, was that Monday or Tuesday? Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Yeah, it was
Tuesday.
yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm so thrown off. But we'll be able to look back on Brett Veach's comments once we see, honestly, like a pretty quick, there's a couple decisions that they can make, like the Jawan Taylor trade, either trade or cut.
Yeah.
There's Drew Tranquill. There's the Trent McDuffie decision. All of these different things that he talked about at the Combine, we can see which way it goes and determine whether he was being truthful or not. We don't have to wait until even the draft. But I thought his comments, Brett Veach's comments about we've invested with Creed Humphrey, we've invested with Trey Smith, we've invested a second-round pick on Kingsley to be the left tackle, and now he's the left guard. So there's a lot of investment at the interior of the offensive line, and yet they haven't been able to. He said that the Chiefs have not been able to impose their will in the run game. And I think that that's the thing we talked about throughout last season. Not only is it just like the run game is poor, it's like they don't even have occasionally a game where they just dominate people on the ground.
No.
Like,
what did we say
almost
the biggest chunk play was last year? For I think Kareem Hunt had like a
yeah, he had
20
one
yarder.
against the Jaguars.
Yeah.
But I have to, like, just thinking through, and I feel like I have a really good memory of Chiefs games, that the last time I can remember the Chiefs just being like, we're going to run the ball, we're going to run the ball, we're going to run the ball for an entire game is the 2020 season where there were no fans and they went to Buffalo and they gave Clyde the ball 30 plus times and they ran for over 200 yards. Like, it just never happens. But if you've paid all this money to these guys, you have to make it work. And that's where I wonder if Jeremiah Love is in play. I don't think it would be the smart thing to do because there's bigger holes on the rest of the roster, and I would hope that a top 10 pick, which I would hope the Chiefs are not picking in the top 10 in the next decade again.
Yeah.
I would hope that they would address either edge rusher or wide receiver because it's a more premium position to draft at that point. But I'm curious to see how Brett Veach approaches it. I mean, there's all these leaks about Travis Etienne being connected to the Chiefs. Like, they could have it all solved, the free agency part of it, at running back pretty quickly. And if they do certain things in free agency at running back, that would probably take it off of the board at 9. And that's when we can start doing our NFL draft coverage and
we are in
funneling it
purgatory,
more toward the defensive ends and the wide receivers rather than just this, there's guys at every position.
Yeah. League year starting 2 weeks from today, March 11th. March 11th? March 10th. March 11th, 2 weeks from today. Okay, we'll close with this. Spring training today. Noah Cameron getting his first start of spring training. Kind of fun hearing him listen to his press conference or kind of locker room scrum after the game. He played 2 innings. Hearing where he was, this is the St. Joseph, Missouri native for folks who maybe aren't familiar. Hearing where he was this time last year versus where he is now is unbelievable. This time last year it was competing for a spot, throwing as much as he needed to prove that he deserves a spot on this roster. Kind of the local guy who, like, maybe he'll get called up, maybe he won't. Fast forward a year, he's the first pitcher of the year for the Royals as a rookie since Brad Keller in 2018. On much more of a like load management kind of spring training, gearing up for the season. But Gabe, I know spring training is kind of also purgatory, where it's like, well, whatever, we still have a month, and we're not really seeing the full roster thrown at the plate. But maybe we'll steer it to Noah Cameron year 2.
Yeah, a friend of mine today texted me and said, I haven't really been able to watch spring training. What do you think about the Royals so far? And I said, I haven't really been able to watch the Royals either because we don't really – we get whatever the edited down highlights are from the games rather than watching the whole thing. Because I'm not necessarily sitting around all day and listening to the radio broadcast of the spring training games.
Which feels like a good time to plug. You'll be able to watch the opening day of the K on KCTV5.
Yes.
Free. Yeah.
Great plug.
Thanks.
My response to said friend of mine was, and he followed it with, what's the rotation look like? And then I listed out all of the starting options, and I was like, so I genuinely don't know what they're going to do at the 5th spot. And that's not a discredit to Noah Cameron. He's really good. But when you have Reagans, Lugo, Waka, and Bubic, those 4 guys have either the high-end talent of Bubic with the question mark of all the injuries, or just the and I guess you could say question mark of injuries for Cole Reagans at times, or just the track record of success of Lugo and Waka. Those guys are in the rotation. The 5th spot then comes down to Noah Cameron, Ryan Bergert, who was really good at the end of last season and such. So I can't predict who it's going to be, but they have multiple options, and I think that that's the fascinating thing for them to shape out throughout spring training and then give us the answer to in late March. I don't know what direction they're going to go, but I know that they have good options, and he is one of the very good options because of what he did last year.
Yeah. Also a full season for Jack Caglione, which should be fun. Hit a 460-foot bomb yesterday.
Yep.
So more to come. But, yeah, a little over a month away from Royals opener, which is also hard to believe. But if you're a sports fan and you think things are slow right now, they're about to get the opposite of that here in a couple days. That'll do it for us here on KC Sports Tonight. We'll send you over to KCTV5 News at 6 here in just a moment.